I'm dedicating tonight's craft along to Stephanie Crohan, who passed away a couple weeks ago unexpectedly. And I think about her all the time. And she was a very generous, kind person, and she loved all things crafty. So this is the paper I'm using, and you can see how much paper's left. There's a lot of paper left. So what you're going to want to do to get started is you will need 8.5 by 11 cardstock. You really need 3 sheets. I can't remember if I put 4, but if you want matting, you're going to want that. Stephanie at the store, and also, oh, line dancing. I didn't realize you line dance, Tracy. That's so cool. Maybe I did know that and I forgot. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut one 8.5 by 11 into 4 1/4 by 11, and you need just 2 of those. So once you cut it in half, that fulfills this measurement. And then you're going to take 2 sheets of 8.5 by 11 and cut them into 8 3/4 by 5.5. So I'm going to cut my 8.5, my 4 1/4 by 11, and this paper is just a little oversized. So there's one 4 1/4 by 11. What paper is everybody using tonight? All right, and so now I have my 2 4 1/4 by 11 panels. I'm going to set that to the side. Okay, and then I found my other one, so I only have to cut one. This one I'm going to cut with the 8.5 at the top of my trimmer. I'm going to cut down to 5.5. And this is actually, you could probably use it as a photo mat in your album. And then I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and cut it at 8 3/4. So you need 2 of these. So you're going to cut 2 at 5.5 and 8 3/4. These are a 1/4 inch larger than a A2 card base. So instead of 8.5 by 5.5, you have 8 3/4. All right, you are done with your cutting, or with your paper trimmer for now. You will need it for your decorating and cutting your pattern paper, so you can set that aside. And then next you're going to need your scoreboard. And if you have just the 1/4 inch or you're using your trimmer, this is easy. We're only doing a couple score lines. And you'll need either your bone folder or whatever you use for your scoring tool. And what you're going to do, we'll go ahead and score we're going to score the 4 1/4 by 11, those 2 panels. So with your paper at the top at 11, you're going to score at 5.5, 5.5, and 5 3/4. Then you're going to take your second 4 1/4 by 11, and with the 11 inch at the top, so you're going to have 11 inches of paper at the top, you're going to score at 5.5 and 5 3/4 again. Now, if you want to, I'm going to set that aside for a minute. I realized when I was decorating this, I probably could have gone with a little bit more of a gap here. So if you wanted more of a gap on these 2 panels that we just did, you're just going to, if you want like 3/8 of an inch or a half an inch, just score further down. So let me show you. So if you want a 1/2 inch, like gusset here, you would score at 5.5 and 6. Your first score line has to be at 5.5. And that's for the sister. I'm going to call this the sister panel. So you should now have 2 4 1/4 by 11 Both of them scored at 5.5 and 5 3/4. All right, so we're good. We're gonna move on, okay? I think I see Brenda. Sorry, sometimes, so I'm using one of those Archon mounts, and it has an arm, and one thing that I had a problem today is when I put it into the mount, it turned the video off, but it doesn't let me see the full screen, so I can't see everything. But I think I see Brenda there. All right, then the next we're going to take the 8 3/4 by 5.5 panel, and you're going to put it in your scoreboard at 8 3/4 at the top. Now, the way to remember this is the first score line, and this goes for the other one, is always think of your A2. So you're always wanting your first score line at what you would normally do for your A2. So on this one, we're going to do 4 1/4. So you have your 8 3/4, and you're going to score at 4 1/4. And then you're going to score at 4.5. And you're going to repeat for the second panel. So you'll have 2 8 3/4 by 5.5 scored at 4 1/4 and 4.5. All right. Hi there, Brenda. All right. So that's what you have. This is super easy. You should now have 4 panels. Two of each the same. What you're going to do now is you can go ahead and crease where your score lines are. Use your bone folder and just line. I always like to line up, make sure that my paper is parallel to its other half, to the side that's folded over. I'm just going to press on the score lines. Now, if you had 12 by 12 paper, you could change these measurements. I'm going to show you what I mean, but most people are card makers, although I know several of you have scrapbooking 12 by 12 paper. But so now I'm just creasing my score lines on both. So what pattern's everybody using? I asked a question on Facebook today, what was in the box, and nobody's guessed it yet. So everybody has until noon tomorrow. I want to give a hint, but I'm not gonna. I think someone might figure it out. I even hid the box in the store. That way if someone comes in, they won't see it. Heartfelt Rosie Studio. Oh, I have Heartfelt. I love that paper line. That one's fun. I also have I think it's the Bayfair. This Bayfair. And I think it's Bellevue is the other one. So this would be good too. All right. So everybody should now have your panels. What we're going to do, we're going to start gluing this. And I'm going to use glue. You guys can use paper tape or tape runner, whatever you want. And we're going to assemble this. What I wanted was the inside to be clean. So I ended up gluing everything to the back panels. So that's what we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to glue one of the 4 1/4 by 11 to an 8 3/4 by 5.5. And what I did was you're going to see one side is a little bit shorter. I glued the short side to the back. So this way you have a full panel on the inside. so it's not, you won't notice the short side, okay? So if you have this piece right here, there's one piece when it's folded, and you can see that the binding there, the piece that's shorter, so one piece of the panel is shorter, you're going to glue that piece to the back of your panel, and it's going to be shorter on the back, but you're not going to see it because we're going to cover it with pattern paper, and this piece is going to go over it. All right, I'm going to grab my glue. Okay, any questions on that? So the short piece is the piece that we're going to glue to the back of the first part of the card base. Try not to get any glue in your crease, and then when you glue this down, try and get it as flush as you can, but also make sure that this piece is not in your fold. It's just below the fold. Otherwise, you're going to have a hiccup and it won't fold down. So I'm just going to play a little bit with this piece. Make sure that folds down and there's a straight edge there. That looks good. I'm happy with that. All right. So there's your first couple flaps. Now I'm going to fold the second 4 1/4 by 11, and I'm going to do the same thing. The short piece is going to go on the back side. So see how I'm keeping this front really nice, or the inside nice and clean? I'm just going to add a little bit of glue, or a lot, because I like a lot of glue. Who's using glue and who's using tape runner for this? And again, it's the short side of this panel, and I'm going to place it right here so this is all lined up, and we're basically starting gluing it to the center of our folio. And then just make sure that your piece here is below the score line. Otherwise, this won't be able to fold down. It'll get stuck. This looks pretty good. Okay. I have, hold on. I just got to move it a little bit. No, it's not covered. It's a little wonky. It's okay. That looks good. If you're over, and I think this happened on my original, I just trimmed this flush before I added the last piece. So now what you're going to do is you're going to add the last piece, and I glued it behind for 2 reasons. One, it covers up this little short piece here. So I don't know if you can see, there's a short piece. The short piece. I'm going to take my pencil. So the short piece comes to here, but the book fold is right there. So by adding this piece to the back, it's going to hide that, but then it's also going to give you a really nice, clean look on the inside. So and it doesn't matter on this one either way. So just pick one and glue it. Again, try to stay with your adhesive on the inside of the crease. You know, when I talk, I talk. I obviously don't have a recording. But now that I'm doing all these lives and I go back and I listen to myself, I'm like, how do I sound when I'm not recording? Because I make a lot of mistakes when I talk. I'm not very descriptive. All right, so I'm going to glue this in, make sure that I'm on the inside of this crease and that this panel is all square and flush on the back. So I'm glad I'm using liquid glue because it's giving me a little work time Oops. And I'm gonna put my piece just like such. And just make sure that I can fold it. I need to pull it just a little bit more, I think, but let's see. Yeah. So definitely want to make sure that you're checking your folds, because you don't want to start decorating and then you can't fold it properly. And once you start adding layers and stuff, it's going to be even harder to fold. So just make sure you're just on the inside of that score line. That should work. Perfect. All right. How's everybody doing? All right, this is what your book should look like. Easy peasy, right? All right, heartfelt. Okay, I don't see any more comments. So I don't know if we lost Nina. And I'm pretty sure I put 6:30. Oh, but the central time. Oh well, people can watch it on repeat, right, everyone? All right. I'm gonna have to check my other Facebook events, make sure they're all in the right time zone. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna decorate. And what I did was I just took some of my pattern paper and let me actually, before I do this, let me show you how I folded it. So I folded it up, I think over, and down. But this flap here, this is definitely, I would definitely make this the one that folds down. And the reason being is if you do it this way, this will tend to fall. And I'm going to secure mine with a magnet, and I had mentioned you could use a belly band. But so you definitely want to pay attention to how you want to fold before you start decorating, in case you want like matchy on certain things. So if you want this to match this, then you want to pay attention to where that's flipping. It's up to you, but I definitely would pay attention. And then once you pick a top, stick with it, because you don't want any of your pattern papers upside down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 6x6 paper pad, and I like having a border, so I cut everything 1/8 of an inch smaller than an A2 panel. So right now, all of these panels should be A2 size. Which this is fun for, oh my God, I love this paper. If you had card panels or card fronts that you wanted to keep and just make a little booklet, you could cut them and put them in here. How fun is that? I'm in love with this paper. So this is single-sided paper. And what I did was I have 2 of these. I will probably use there and there. I love the wood. I have that. This is really pretty. I like this. I have 2 of these. This here will probably be my cover. And that's how I did it. So I'm gonna, ooh, I like this too. I think I'm gonna put this here. Oh, I love that. All right. And then I think I'm gonna put this down here. The other thing I did yesterday, which I'm sure some of you already knew this, but to make a paper look a little bit different, you can cut, so I can cut here, and then on the same paper cut here, and it'll shift it. But the other thing you can do is cut top and bottom, and it'll make it look a little bit different if you don't want it matchy. So if you want this over here, oh, let me show you. So this piece here, and then the top piece shifted, you could do that too. But I'm not going to do that. I'm actually thinking I'm going to use these two. And, All right, so then what I did was, once I got my pieces set for now, and I also did use a frayed burlap and an ink blending tool, but that's all personal preference. What you're going to want to do is take your 6x6. I'm going to use this little guillotine trimmer, and I'm going to cut this to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And so if you want a border, and this is going to give you a 1/16 of an inch border all around, all 4 sides, those are the measurements you're going to want. And then I'm going to grab my ink blending tool because I do want to edge this. You can use an edge distressor if you want to do that. You can do that and ink it. That's always fun. I'm just going to ink it. And I'm going to use tape runner for this part. How easy was this to put together? I think this is what I'm going to end up using for my craft along for Maker Mania, but we'll see. But I just love it. So now I'm just going to place this piece with my borders all around, just like that. It's a little off. Okay, it's staying though. Sometimes it's worth a fight, sometimes it's not. I do have undo, but it's okay. And then I'm just going to repeat the steps. So again, it is 4 1/8. If you want that 1/16 of an inch border, so 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. Super easy. And then what I'm going to do is this piece and this piece. And I'll show you how I did my magnet. And again, you can use a belly band if you want. If you just, honestly, when I do belly bands, I guess. Who else just guesses when they do belly bands? If you don't have the measurements handy. I'm sure I'm not the only one, right? All right, I'm going to do this piece here, which that's going to be my cover. I think I want this here. All right, so at this point, because I am using something that is directional, I need to definitely make sure I have my folio the way it needs to be so that the image is correct and upright. Perfect. How easy is this? Now, I'm going to also warn you, I do not recommend using a lot of embellishments in making this super thick. And the reason being is, and I'll show you in a minute, it won't close, or it won't close properly. So let me show you on the sample one I made real quick what I'm talking about. Let me show you the one thing about adding dimension. And so on the original one, I had put a pocket, and there's still a little room, but you know, once you start adding all those layers, this 1/4 of an inch is not going to be a ton. What do you do with the edge? What color? So I am using frayed burlap, and I'm just inking it, if that's what you mean, Tracy. Okay. And then you, Brenda, you what? You say me, and I don't know what the question was because I just went on and on. So I put a pocket here, and then I had other tags in here, and they had real pretty ribbon and stuff. but the ribbon and the twine made it too bulky and it wasn't closing right. So I ended up having to swap them out. And you want to be cognizant of that, because once you start flapping, and that's why I was saying, if you plan on adding a lot, you could make these panels here, cut them at a different, slightly larger measurement, maybe 9 by 5.5, and then so you can make it so that you can add more dimension or add more stuff to it. There's all kinds of stuff you could do to this album. The other thing I could have done too was I probably could have slit like another page in here underneath, so there was just a page. So you can go all kinds of fun stuff on these if you want, but you will need to be cognizant of your thickness when you start adding stuff to the inside, because you definitely want to make sure that this closes. All right, I'm going to put a piece of paper here, and I think that should be the lighthouse. What do you guys think? A nice little pretty treat when you open up the book, huh? Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. This is so exciting. All right. Now, I am using the Tonic Studio Niobium magnets, and they are very strong. But I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how many layers I'm going to put. And I always feel like, for the most part, there's another layer. For this particular page, I'm assuming there's either going to be a picture, a photo mat, or whatever. So I'm actually going to just add the magnet on the outside of the pattern paper, because the more layers you have between the magnet and the two magnets, they don't latch as well, even though these latch really well. But again, I don't know what I'm going to do. So the fewer barriers, the better off they are. They're so fun. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of my 1/4 score tape. I'm going to place the magnet where I think would be best. You don't typically want it, I don't like it too close, particularly if you're going to do a mat or something, because what's going to end up happening is the mat is going to go over this hump. I like to bring it in a little bit. So I'm going to bring it right there. And this is I just want one magnet. And I'm going to tape it down. You can glue it too, but I'm just going to tape it. And then I'm going to take the second magnet and just make sure it catches. Now, this particular piece of paper, I like it the way it is, but I have a feeling I am at least going to add a couple of cut-aparts over the top. And I lost my magnet. Oh, don't you hate that? Oh, there it is. It's on top. I didn't lose my magnet. Okay. I am going to take my embellishments out and just see if there's something in here. But the point being is you want to be careful where you put your magnet. All right. I'm just going to leave it here for now. I want to get to the belly band. So just think about your layering, what you're going to do, and try and eliminate as many layers for the magnet to make sure that it catches. All right. So we'll go to the belly band now. I'm 2 1/4. I'm going 2 1/4. This will probably fit. So I'm going to take my strip and my scoreboard, and again, I'm making this up. I'm going to score at 4. I'm going to score at 4 and, what is that, 3/8? 4 3/8. I'm just going to crease this. I'm going to take my book. I'm going to see. All right. I'm now going to score at 4 1/8. So this should give me the 1/4 inch thickness of the album. Oh, this can be perfect. Perfect. Now I need to score this piece. So I'm just going to take this. Look at this. I've never done this. I'm totally winging this, but this seems to be working pretty good. We're going to do, this looks like 4 3/8. So I'm going to do 4 3/8. All right, but if you're on the full 8, full 11, it would be, oh, this paper's not, this paper is a little longer. It's about 1/8 of an inch longer. 8 5/8, I'm going to say. Yep, okay. And then I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch to the right of this last one, the last score line. I'm going to get you the real measurements in a minute. Just give me a second. This is how we make stuff up. This is how I made the book, by the way. All right. Now, that is really tight. So if you want to have it, this is pretty snug. You would want to score, so let's try another, we'll try another one. But the other thing is, I didn't make this in the middle. I don't really care because I'm more than likely going to decorate this, so you're not even going to see where this meets up in the front. But if you want it in the middle, you'll have to do some math on that. My brain can't do that live. I would have to sit down and do some calculations, but you will see this is really snug. I think this personally needs another 1/16 of an inch gap to allow for expansion. So let's actually take the one we did, or the one I did earlier. You're going to see, yeah, you're definitely going to want this wider. So let's take another strip. And you might need to use two strips and glue them together. I'm trying to use one to make it easier. So I'm doing 2 1/4 again. So I made 2 1/4 by 11 inch strip. And now with the 11 at the top, I'm going to score at 4 1/4 and 4 5/8. And then really the way this works is you would need 4 1/4 over for your first score line, because that is the width of this. So 4 1/4 from here, which I don't think my brain can do that, but I'm going to try. So let's see here. That's it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 1/4. So it should be 8 7/8. Let's hope that's right. And then I'm going to do 3/4, or excuse me, 3/8. 1, 2, 3. So 8 7/8 and 9 1/4. That's what I'm going with. And that is how I figure stuff out. Who else figures stuff out like this? Isn't it easier when, it's so much easier when someone does it for you, right? But it's so much more satisfying when you figure it out yourself. Then once I get something like this made, I actually take the measurements. As long as you have 4 1/4 inch in this back main piece, that's what you want. So you could shift all of this like an inch over, and it would be more evenly, the score marks would be more evenly distributed. Let's see here. Much better. So for me, 3/8 is the ticket, and you could actually probably even get away with a 1/2 inch. So that's how I would do the belly band, and then I would glue it this way, and I would decorate this, and then I would have the belly band. I probably actually would do another 1/8 of an inch. So I would probably do a 1/2 inch in between. And then, you know, it'll slide on and off really nice. So that's how I would do that. All right, that is the Christmas one. This is the one I made today. And again, the tip here for the magnet, if you have an idea of how you're going to be layering, the best thing to do is have the magnets as few layers in between as possible, and they'll catch a lot easier. All right, any questions? No questions? I hope everybody's having a great summer. I hope everybody has an awesome evening. It's beautiful here in New York. And see you all next time. Have a great night. Thanks, everyone. Bye.